And so our focus this segment is on mass transportation in Enugu State. And we are having this discussion with the former SSA to the governor of Enugu State on transportation, Barrister Aja Peter OBIORA. Glad to have you, Counsel.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Transportation is the engine that drives the growth and development of people, of the society. I don't know if you agree with me, but how did you receive the news that Enugu State government is going to launch a mass transit, a mass transportation system for Enugu State?
Thank you so much. I agree with you totally. The issue of transportation being is at the center of everything in called development in a country. There is nothing, absolutely nothing, that we will talk about. Talk about security in the state. Talk about commerce, entrepreneurship, every segment of development in the state. There's transport. Just mention the place, and I'll tell you where transport comes in. Having said that, it is quite a pleasure to see the action of His Excellency, the incumbent governor of the state, trying to roll out mass transit. I would like to start by making a little difference for the public to know a little difference between mass transportation and mass transit.
Oh.
Yes. We tend to use them interchangeably, but there is a subtle difference between mass transit and mass transportation, and it's good we know that little line that differentiates both. In the first instance, mass transit has to do with that means of conveying people within the metropolitan city, within a particular geographical, especially the city.
The metropolis?
Yes, the metropolis. That is where you now talk about mass transit. But when you talk about mass transportation, it is all-encompassing. It is wider in scope. That is to say that mass transit is even subsumed in mass transportation. But mass transit is narrower in definition. You can now, when you talk about mass transit, you are talking about those vehicles that convey large population, the large number of people within the city. But when you talk about mass transportation, you include even the one that may be going to Abuja from Enugu, the one that may even be going to Ghana from Enugu. We are talking about mass that conveys population to those areas. But mass transit is a bit limited in nature.
Okay, with this explanation, what
we are now talking about mass transit
is about to do is actually mass
transit.
Oh, okay. I was
Enugu
thinking
State mass transit.
Okay.
Yes, that is exactly
with the airline, the rail line, the terminals, and all of those. It is mass transit.
No. That one is mass transportation. Yes.
Okay. I think that's what we want to talk about.
Exactly. But that I only wanted to make, because people tend to
interchange
exactly. Just for the public, what we are discussing is mass transportation. Yes.
Okay.
But sometimes we use them interchangeably.
Okay, so how will the newly introduced hybrid buses in Enugu operate when it starts operating?
Okay, now in the first instance, I'm speaking as somebody who understands transport. I'm not speaking from the authorities. I'm not in the government to say this is exactly how it will operate. So having said that, I think my best approach would be to probably predict how I think it will operate, and probably state some of the problems they may encounter if certain things are not done. That may be the best approach I can, the best way to approach that issue. Because
speaking with out of residual knowledge.
Exactly. That is just the issue from experience. Having worked in Abuja and as consultant in transport in FCT, and having the experience internationally. So I know the best practice, how it's being practiced abroad. So I can speak from that angle, from residual knowledge, as you said, but not as a government. I'm not
the spokesperson for
the government. Yes.
Okay. We'll get to the point where we look at the challenges.
Yes.
Because we have had other mass transportation, mass transit, whatever, launched in Enugu State. But looking on, I don't know if with rising concerns about costs of transportation, if you're looking at this provision as something that will ameliorate that.
Okay, now the main reason for introduction of mass transit and the involvement of states in this mass transit is to ameliorate, is to subsidize costs, there are many other reasons why, but one of the greatest reasons is to subsidize cost for the people. That is one of the greatest reasons why states must be involved in mass transit. However, it is important to state now that mass transit, especially buses, mass transit buses are not all that profit-oriented anywhere.
Okay, so the government is not to benefit from
Not that they don't, but especially at the first instance, the government must plan it in such a way that they will have at the back of their mind that they want to help the public, to render service first to the public. Let me give you an instance. There was a time I went for a training on transport, mass transit in Malaysia. Malaysia is also almost like Nigeria, though they have gone far ahead of us. Yes.
But at the time, probably
yes, we are even ahead of them before. So when I went there for a training, and after the rail training, now we are taken to their bus, mass transit, buses, and we are now asking them how they cope to maintain those buses. Do you know the surprising response they gave to us? That they are sustaining the mass transit buses through the rail, through the revenue they are generating from the rail, that they gain more through the rail. From there, they subsidize the prices and sustain the operation of that bus mass transit. So the introduction of that's coming to your question. The introduction first is to reduce cost for the masses. You use it. Those people who are at the lower cadre can actually afford to patronize that sector, and at the same time, you maintain the buses in such a way that even the high class will also use it. In a developed world, there are some enablers. There are certain things, facilities or infrastructure that must be in place that will now encourage even the people of higher class to even use those buses. For instance, where somebody from maybe Opin Soka wants to come to work is working in Enugu Secretariat here, he may decide to use his vehicle, drive out, then park in a facility called park and ride facility, then hop into the bus, and from that bus he will get to the terminal in Enugu, then get a smaller taxi, then to his office. After work, he will now get into that bus again, go back to UP, then get his vehicle from the park and ride service center, and now get to his house. You now see that the cost of driving his private vehicle has been totally reduced. So there's no way He won't. Anybody can now actually patronize that that bus because of the infrastructure available and the facilities available for him.
Interesting. So moving forward, do you think that the mass transit, I mean the differential,
Yes.
is sustainable?
Sure, it's sustainable. It's sustainable, from, if you look at other places, going beyond Nigeria, where all these things are being used, you understudy how they sustain it. Once you apply it here, it will be sustained.
So what will likely happen to other forms of transportation? Because this one now is going to be of less cost. Won't it really affect other forms of private owned means of transportation?
Okay. Now, for you to effectively run, now I'm talking about the bus mass transit now. Mass transit goes beyond bus. Now, using the bus mass transit now, you now see that there are certain things that must be done. One of those things would be proper or route planning. You must define the route that bus must take. By defining that route, definitely other lesser means of transportation that are not mass transit or in nature will now give way. Definitely they must give way if that bus mass transit will survive. You reduce that competition, but that route must be there for. Because if you don't create that opportunity, you may not, that bus mass transit may not survive. Let me give you an instance, a very clear practical example. There was a time in FCT when even the mini buses, the tricycles are operating within the FCC. FCC is the Federal Capital City. That city itself, they were all operating. Then, in order to allow mass transit buses to operate, something happened. Those mini buses were restricted to a given area. Tricycles were restricted to the satellite towns and suburbs, so as to allow those mini buses, those mass transit buses to operate. And that was the only way it can operate. You cannot imagine a situation where these very big high capacity buses are dragging or using this as an example. I'm not a spokesperson for the government, but let's assume they are operating on New Haven Axis, that Chime Avenue Road, and you now imagine that buses, those long buses, dragging or operating on the same road with tricycles. There will be accidents. There will be no safety for even those. So there must be proper planning of route. You must say this is where this one will take, and because of that, this one must give way on this very particular route. That is the only way it can operate. Otherwise, there will be difficult. There will be chaos. So there must be planning, proper route planning.
So for other states that have these mass transit buses, are there like ways that they can compensate these private owned buses in order, because you're taking away their source of livelihood and you're taking them to remote areas per se, places that you can't really have so much access to people and you don't have so much road access, so they're limited to the extent they can actually travel.
Okay, now what I am telling you is best practice. Remember, I said, and I repeat it again, I'm not speaking for the government, but I'm telling you best practice. Whatever the government wants to do for those lesser buses or lesser vehicles or means of transportation will be up to them. Not for both of us to discuss. It's up to them to say this is how we make sure that will sustain them, or they are still in business. It is still up to them. Remember, for you, there's no way. Enugu is still a relatively large. There's no way, even if you bring 100 now, there's no way those buses, those long buses, will service the entire city. No way, it's not possible. But what I'm saying is that you must route, you must designate areas where this one, the mass transit must operate, and where they are not even supposed to operate. So those places where they are not supposed to operate, the other means of transportation can now operate in those areas. But where they are designated to operate, it's not that they cannot operate with like private vehicles and so on, that the whole entire road will be left for them, but they must, some things must give way
for others.
For others, yes. It must be for overriding public interest. Remember that the reason for one of the reasons for the introduction of these mass transit buses is, first, to reduce cost for the people. Two, to reduce emission. Let me explain. There are certain quantity of gaseous emission that are being emitted by each vehicle. Each vehicle. Now, if you don't even say because of the size. For instance, there's this motorcycle that use two-stroke engine. Once it's operating, the gaseous emission from that two-stroke engine motorcycle is 16 times more than a Hummer bus, what a Hummer bus is emitting. So it's not because of the size. Now, if you remove of course, remember the high capacity buses will carry a lot of passengers, thereby removing great number of vehicles that will carry those people from the road. You understand? And not only the commercial vehicles, even the private vehicles, because if it is running effectively and efficiently, there will be no need, if I'm going to work to use my private vehicle. I'll park my private vehicle, hop into that.
So it will reduce the number of vehicles on
the road. It
and
will
probably reduce traffic congestion.
These are some of the reasons. It will reduce congestion, it will reduce emission, it will reduce cost in our pockets.
Is there any other place in Nigeria, city, state in Nigeria, where this has happened and we're having these results you just painted?
Well, let me use FCT for instance. If you are conversant with what was happening originally, maybe between 2000 down or 2010 down, you know there was chaos in FCC. I'm not talking about FCT as a whole. FCC,
the capital center.
Yes, Federal Capital City.
Okay.
There was chaos. You see mini buses, you see you see keke everywhere dragging the road, until that announcement was made. Stop operating on all these places, and the enforcement actually took them away from the road. And that was what even brought the beauty within the city. At that time, there were concessions. The FCT now concessioned some routes to given companies, who now brought in their big high capacity buses. They now brought those. There was sanity in FCC. So I can use that as a typical example. But
then it would...
But the sustainability is a different thing entirely.
We're not yet there with the sustainability. We are looking at... I know that with the high rate of inflation, with removal of fuel subsidy, all of these things are impacting negatively on Nigerian people economically. Now, you have brought these buses. I know that people will drive them. It's offering employment, making available employment for these people. Yes. But what about those other people who already have minibuses, keke, taxis, and the likes already in the city, let's say in the city of Enugu, and then you are bringing in this government initiative? Most of them will be out of employment, don't you think?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It doesn't happen just within a twinkle of an eye like that. just as you asked before, you are bringing the high capacity buses. You are giving them routes. You are giving them routes. And in that route, you only say this size of this capacity of vehicles should not operate on all those roads. But that will not stop them from operating in other places. Okay. So you are not taking them.
Just like Okada.
Yes.
Okay.
Just like Okada. You see Okada operating. Yet, Okada is not permitted to operate within the metropolis. So it's not taking anybody totally out of business.
Okay. Still looking at the cost of transportation that the government at various levels are looking to ameliorate by the provision of transportation, mass transportation.
Yes.
I don't know if really there are other things that could be put in place to also help solve transportation problem, or is it just the provision of this mass transportation?
Okay, that's a very good, a very wonderful question. Mass transport, particularly on road mass transit, that is these high capacity buses, can only operate effectively and efficiently if the enablers are provided. And there are some things that will make it work better. One of those things is the terminal. If you come to Enugu, that's why I see the personality of His Excellency the Governor, not trying to patronize anybody, but we are saying he's doing the right thing. I remember when I was SSA to the Governor on Transport, one of the things I was shouting and begging the government, even on radio, your sister, on radio and so on, was let's have terminals. Let's have terminals in Enugu. That is a better a starting point. You must create terminals. That terminal may not only serve for the vehicle, for only the vehicle, those buses. The terminal will also link, even when the rail, call it tram, call it monorail, call it light rail, call it anything, will be a meeting point. You may even have park and ride in that terminal.
Can you break that down? Park and ride. We didn't travel to Europe with it.
No. Park and ride is an English. You are even better off in it. Well, park and ride is just what you call it. You are walking here, and there's no way the rail will just get to this place. There may be a station just somewhere in Ababa, a rail station in Ababa. So because of the existence of that rail station, an investor may now come and have a good place where you can even park your vehicle and ride the train. Hop into the train. Your vehicle will be safe there. Once you are coming back, you enter the train and you get there, you take your car and go to your house. This is park and ride. You have so many types of parks. You have park and ride, you have on-street parking, you have off-street parking, you have other means of...
And we don't have all of this in Nigeria.
Well, that is why we say we are developing...
Nation.
So coming to... so when His Excellency, the incumbent governor, started by creating these terminals, I say, yes, this man is getting it right.
In terms of transportation.
In terms of transport. Transport goes to everything, So he's getting it right. Though the siting of those terminals may not be my own idea, I may not be so comfortable where those terminals were sited. But the major thing is that he created terminals. And it's a good start. So with those terminals, so many other things may flow.
Okay. So that will also aid transportation in any society.
Very well.
Is there any other place that this, bringing it home to our own clients, that these terminals have helped to, help a transportation system, to enable effective transportation system?
Yes. I believe in Lagos, we have terminals there. Now in Abuja, when I was working as a consultant in Abuja, we had an issue. You know what we used to have is park, motor park. Now, for me, that was the genesis of this word terminal here.
And there's an actual difference between
terminal.
motor park and terminal.
Now I want to tell you.
My grandmother would think it's just an upgraded motor park.
Now, let me tell you what happened then in Abuja. We're having issues. Wanted to create a modern park, motor parks. Then we had issue with the transport regulation there. The FCT transport regulation did not incorporate motor parks. Motor parks were domiciled in the laws governing the area councils. That's motor park. So in a meeting, we now brought a suggestion. Yes, there must be a way out. So let's call it another name, but we are still targeting one thing. That was how we now suggested, let's use the word terminal. Then in Abuja, that's what I'm telling you, in Abuja. So we now created the one, we created along Nyanya. We called, it's a motor park, but we called it terminal. So the area council could not go to court. Because if we call it park,
they already have.
Yes, it's in their law. It's in their law. So if they go to court, if we call our own motor park, if they go to court, then we'll stop work because we are entering or we are venturing into their own jurisdiction. So we now use the word terminal, to run away from it. So, but what we wanted to do there is a modern motor park. So instead of calling it modern motor park, we now called it terminal. So in other places like Lagos, I know they have operational terminals. But if you go to Holy Ghost, if you go to all these places where His Excellency is constructing or has constructed.
When you say His Excellency, you need to mention his name.
Yes, His Excellency. We are in Enugu. Okay, yes, because this is an international. Yeah, His Excellency, the Governor of Enugu State, is constructing a terminal. Of course, if you go there, you'll be happy and you'll be proud of that you are in Enugu State.
Okay,
you are from Enugu State.
So it's a difference comparatively.
Yes, very, very. It's wonderful, and he's planning. I think he's planning 50 years ahead. Oh. Yes, if you go after visiting those terminals, you know that His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba is planning 50 years ahead. We'll continue to benefit from those, even though some people are having some pains, because of the effect of demolition and so on. But it's for overriding public interest.
Okay, railways in Nigeria, it's something that has been dead for a period of time now. And people in different, like Lagos State, they have their railways working right now. They have a train station in Lagos State. And I'm sure other states as well are trying to adopt that. Do you see, that's being incorporated as the new, as a normal way of transportation in the future?
Railway is a mass transit, a mass transport is within the mass transport. With rail you can convey thousands, if not up to 1 million, in few hours. However, let me tell you that in Nigeria, before now, railway was in the exclusive legislative list before now. But recently, what does it mean? Let me explain. Is we have in our constitution those items within the exclusive legislative list are items only the federal government can legislate upon. So, and rail happened to be there. So only the federal government can say we are building a rail line so place on so place. Of course, when the rail died in Nigeria and they are trying to bring it back to life. In fact, it's working now in some places, but unfortunately, within the southeast, we don't have the. We don't have it. Yes, but fortunately enough, rail has been removed from. Is now within the concurrent legislative list. Okay,
so it's now
zones, states.
Anyone can
can get into it. Okay. So, and happily, I heard over the radio just last week or last 2 weeks, I can't remember, where is being. I think I read on the news where they are talking about His Excellency Dr. Peter Mba trying to, create Enugu rail that will even go outside Enugu, go within Enugu and outside Enugu, and I was very happy. He has the power, the states has the power to venture into that now. Okay,
still on this rail matter, that's rail transportation, means of transportation matter. Sometime in 2022, an Abuja bound Kaduna train, or is it the other way around? I can't remember. Okay, Kaduna bound Abuja train. There was a mishap. It wasn't a rail accident.
Yes.
It was a pure kidnap of about 900 passengers.
Yes.
Looking at security, the kind of security issues, this kind of security challenges that we currently have, are there measures? We are not expecting that unfortunate situation repeats itself if we can handle them.
Yes.
If we begin to put this system of transportation in place across board in Nigeria, how are we going to mitigate, knowing the precarious security situation we are in? What measures can we adopt to ensure that people don't get into the train to make a trip and they don't get out alive, or they don't get to their destination in one piece?
Yes. The necessity brings invention. Nigeria was not like this years back. We are operating a rail from Kaduna to Lagos freely. Until recently, rail started operating, and there was security issue on it. The only solution is to provide security. This security problem is not only on rail, on train. It happens everywhere.
And certainly not on air. While you're flying.
Yes. Well, I don't think in Nigeria they have gotten to that level.
Hijacking airplanes.
But that will not stop us from planning and being proactive. So, apart from providing security on our on other areas, rail must be, when you are building rail, you must also provide enough assurance to people who will patronize that system of transportation. Yes, you must assure them by providing security. Of course, I know that if there will be rail in Enugu, if Enugu State will venture into that rail issue as they promised, I'm very sure they will take
care of security issues. Are there
issues.
other states already involved, in fact, that already had effective railway system?
No,
other than Lagos State, we know they've been doing a lot.
Yes, I know in Lagos, but I cannot speak authoritatively that is owned by Lagos.
Oh, that's true.
I'm not sure. I think it's still national line. I think, though I'm yet to confirm, but any state has, since it has been removed from exclusive legislative list, any state, to the concurrent, any state can venture into rail transportation. If you go to Abuja, of course, you know that we have light rail there. It's being built by FCT. That one is FCT light rail that now connects the national line. It's that one that has security issue was along the national line. The light rail was the one from Idu going inside town. Then it meets to the national line.
Okay, there's such railway transportation.
Yes, in Abuja, yes.
Where you move, for instance, if we use Enugu to make a description, you move from Gariki or Konano, for instance, to Ababa.
Yes.
Such things are
it's possible, very possible.
Oh, really?
The one of Abuja has is about more than 6 lots. I think they have only done 2. Only 2 lots. But by the time they complete the 6 lots, the entire Abuja will be covered. You can go from airport to Nyanya. You can go from any, but the one they have done, I know you can operate through the light rail from Idu, from to airport, and coming inside town, but it has not gone far. That's the same thing can be done in Enugu, from Ababa to Gariki, even from Opi to Enugu, then to Gariki even to Aniri, Mpu, the border town to Ebonyi. So it's possible. It's very, very possible.
Okay, so what are some strategic recommendations that you'd actually give out for sustainability and effectiveness of mass transportation in Nigeria as a whole?
Do we have mass transportation apart from rail in Nigeria? You say mass transportation. When you are talking about mass transportation, you are talking about entirely.
Yes.
Oh, the only thing I will say, each of them has its own ways of running them. If you come to transportation, let me give you an instance. Enugu has ventured into CNG. That is the gas, the buses they brought, I think is CNG, right?
They are CNG.
So which will reduce the cost of maintenance. The cost of running.
That's the benefit of running on CNG.
Yes,
okay.
It will reduce the cost of running operation, the operational cost. It will reduce it.
Okay, now, because petrol
is higher,
okay.
It's more expensive, and the other one burns
less.
Yes, less. That is one. Two, the boss, they need to start looking at bringing in investors to start coupling and maintenance, maintaining those vehicles within here, having the vehicle parts in Nigeria here. For instance, if Enugu should sustain the mass transport, the buses in Enugu, they must have a way of, creating a chain for spare parts supply.
So each state or city that gets into that will also adopt what
yes, that about. Is you must make sure that you maintain those buses. Of course, you know that during Sullivan's era, he introduced.
We were going to talk about that, okay. but you have just taken it so soon. Okay. There's also Entraco, okay. Barrister Aja. There is also Entraco.
Yes.
Let's talk about what has gone wrong with.
No, I don't think you should go into Entraco right now. Yes, there's a difference. You think
it's as effect? Okay, there's a difference in each scheme.
Operation, yes. Operational distance.
Let's understand the difference.
Like this Entraco now, when I was in government, Entraco was just a name, a company registered by Enugu State. That was there. Now
run by Enugu State.
Yes, that Entraco. I think it's still answering Entraco, right?
It is still Entraco. It used to be, what is it? Anambra State
exactly. Now trackers. So we now have Entraco. Now that Entraco, as a company, when I was in government, I remember having a conversation with the MD. He actually told me that almost all the vehicles, there was a time, almost all the vehicles are owned by investors.
Yeah.
None from the state. Not even one from the state. So they are the company, just managing the company. And people are investing in it. So their aim, of course, an investor like that, their aim is to maximize profit. But in mass transit, like these high capacity buses, for states to get involved, they must also include some incentives that will make the running of those vehicles a bit cheaper. A bit cheaper. So that somebody who is receiving 70,000 naira as minimum wage can also afford to pay and still have change to run his home within the month. That is the difference. But the other one, you dare not tell anybody to subsidize the prices of Entraco, because those vehicles are owned by individuals. So, but this one, these high capacity buses that will just run within the city or within the state, as I expect that there should be subsidy. That there should be subsidy from any source. except if they want to run it purely as business. Then that means its sustainability will depend on how much it generates, the revenue, the fare people are paying. So of course, for you to maintain such vehicles, high capacity vehicles, to run within the city and not go far distances like Lagos and Abuja, the prices will definitely be high. Yes, high.
Still on the sustainability, I don't know what the challenges are, but you can supply us with that information. Using Enugu State as a case study,
yes,
it was a beautiful thing that happened to Enugu, especially the metropolis at the time that Barrister Sullivan Chime was the governor, when there was these buses, the luxurious buses that can run through intra-city, and the taxis at the time. It cut down transportation costs. It did quite a lot. I know a lot of persons who began to experience taxis at the time. Those of us who were born before that time, who lived in Enugu when it was quite better. Okay, we experienced taxis, but you saw people at the time who were very, 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 very at home, comfortable, very, very okay with the fact that they can hire a taxi to take them around the city and even visitors. But the moment Sullivan's regime ended, gradually we stopped seeing the taxis. I think some of them were repainted, and then we stopped seeing the buses. What are the challenges of sustainability of this kind of transportation arrangement that benefits the masses? The masses. I'll tell you something, Barrister Aja. The number of persons that patronize mass transportation is quite greater than the number of persons who do not. Those who do not are just in the a very small minority. So when I talk about these things, I talk about the greater majority of Nigerians. Sustainability, the challenges, because of your experience too.
Now, the sustainability of this scheme is dependent on many variables. One, we must start it from there. You must create an environment that will cut down corruption in the system. I don't want to give you an ugly experience I had when I was SSA about those long buses. Government was releasing funds for the maintenance of those buses, but those funds were going straight into private pockets, and those buses started going down until they were parking. No more maintenance, no repairs. There was a time it was only one on the road.
Whose responsibility?
Now it is the responsibility. It falls squarely on the government. Now that His Excellency Dr. Peter Mbah is now rolling out these new ones. Before now, and I'm sure probably that's why they packed it until it's been it will be rolled out, to make sure that they plan and put up some legislations. In fact, the House of Assembly should even get involved. There are some legislations that must be created for its sustainability. That is one. Two, there must be that law must take care of the duties of all the personnel that will be working in that organization or that subsector. So once corruption is taken away, the next thing is that there should be regular fund made available to them in order to augment whatever revenue they will be generating from the fare. Because to tell you the truth, to maintain those buses, except you make it purely business. If you don't make it purely business, if you want people to benefit from those buses, there must be subsidies.
Okay.
Then another area is that you must make sure that there is we have access to the spare parts. They are readily available. Once the brake pad is going down, change it. If it is the tire, change it. Keep on maintaining them, because once it starts breaking down the road, people will start running away from it. You can't imagine you coming back, let's take for instance, coming back from Aban, maybe from Esut, and you are coming to Enugu town, and along the road, the vehicle stops you on the way. Then you have to come down, alight from the vehicle, take another one, which may cost you more. Next time you say, let me just take another means of transportation straight. So you must reduce the number of times the vehicle is breaking down the road. Of course, I commend the current governor of Enugu State for his ingenuity in road maintenance. Of course, if the roads are bad, you will see those vehicles going inside the gullies, the potholes, and will be breaking down more often than you expected. So these are some of the challenges that they face. Once all these things are taken care of, especially making a legislation that will govern, give protection, not after the administration, the next administration will come and mess up the entire system. You create you make a legislation that will sustain those vehicles and that scheme.
You talked about subsidies, subsidizing that scheme.
Yes.
For you, I know you said that if there's a subsidy in place,
yes,
it will benefit the masses
yes.
more. But talking about sustainability, what would you actually propose? Its availability, or is it be cost-based subsidized?
Well, you must marry both. You must marry both for you to sustain that. The number of persons that will patronize those high capacities, if the fare is high, will go down. And when you bring the price down, and make sure you collect the fare gets to the right places, because that is where you now talk about proper ticketing. Proper ticketing. Maybe make it possible that I can stay in my house and book.
Just like you can book a flight.
Exactly. Then another advantage is that you must also have timing, scheduling. You will say, if I'm going to Gariki from here now, I know that once I get to this social place at social time, there's a bus. That's proper scheduling of. Then there will be proper tracking. All these things are not rocket science. These are something you sit down and you plan. You can actually track real-time tracking of those vehicles. You can actually stay here.
Private mass transit is huge on that. So why can't government?
That is exactly. So once these things are done properly, then I'm telling you, even the subsidy, with time, government may even. But the problem is that if there is corruption, even the little ones that should trickle in through the will now be diverted into other.
Okay, Barrister Aja, in conclusion, when we talk about mass transit not mass transportation, the focus is really in the cities, in the metropolis. What about the marginal? Okay, let me say the population in the hinterlands. How would it benefit them? How would it trickle down to those in the various communities outside the metropolis?
Now, the Rome wasn't built in a day.
We have to start from somewhere.
We must start from somewhere. Once you get it right within the city center, I suggest, this is my opinion, that the state government should collaborate with local governments. As state is providing some subsidies, every local government should also get involved so that those vehicles can also operate in their areas. For instance, in Enugu State, we only have 17 local governments. And if in my own local government, Aniri, the bus is not coming there, then of course I'll ask question. But with the collaboration of the local government and the state government, it will be seamless. it will come there on time. There will be routes. Everybody will now know vehicle will come from an area to Enugu at this time. If you want to travel, you come there. And if you are going to, you know the time. You can even track their time on your phone and know how to. With that, there will be effective and efficient transportation system in the state.
All right, thank you, Barrister Peter Aja, former SSA to Enugu State Government on transportation, for your very knowledgeable contribution to the subject matter on Signature Evening this evening. Mass transit, mass transportation,
yes.
Whatever angle we're looking at it from, still matter now as before, and even in the foreseeable future. Nigeria is still car dominant. By this, I mean that more people use road transportation than any other means of transportation. Sure. And so when we look at these things, it should be from the angle of the benefit of the masses. Thank you very much, Joe, for joining us.
Thank you.
The pleasure is mine.
Signature TV. News in your pocket.